So, can you tell me, well, one, do you remember when we started working together? And also, like, what was going on in your life that kind of prompted you? What symptoms might you have been experiencing, physical or emotional, that prompted you to begin this work?
I was coming out of like a really physically and emotionally difficult time. Like I can't remember again the exact year, but I was working with a friend who had worked with you for a long time and she had suggested that I work with you. 2019, we had just gone through like IVF that had failed. Um
Mhm.
and like 10 days after that, um or 10 days after I had lost the twins of those, like I had started getting like hives and like my face had started to swell. And like then my husband, I don't know, maybe that summer had started drinking again. And I was just a mess. And so
Yeah.
creating, like, I knew I was carrying a tremendous amount of like grief and stress and physical symptoms, and my life felt chaotic and things felt very unstable at home, and I was just like struggling, and like I didn't know, I needed something to feel, I was searching for something that felt like what can help me make sense of what was happening to me.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about like what you're experiencing now in your life. Like, so kind of paint a picture of like this was me before and like this is me now.
Before I would be somebody who would like be chasing like these isolated symptoms, like, right, like, oh my gosh, I'd be going down to Indianapolis searching for like reasons why like I had like hives and joint pain and all these things, and then seeing a therapist for my trauma and like putting everything in like separate buckets
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not making the connection that everything was like an arc of like we need to treat the whole you
Hmm.
in order for those things, in order for a bigger vision. And when I started recognizing that, like almost like the temperature of my body started to lower and things just kind of started to flow. Like things started to become easier. Things started to go away without me even tr- trying, it felt like.
Or like focus, right? Without even focusing on it. It's like the
Yeah.
symptoms just kind of get quiet because we're listening to them, I think, rather than
Mhm.
reacting to them.
Yeah.
And this is something that everybody that I've interviewed has named, like this moment of transition where we kind of, you named it, like I stopped chasing the symptom. What do you think made that shift possible?
Oh, things that I used to like internally punish myself for, like when I would make mistakes,
Yeah.
recognizing that like that's how I learn. And um I like, and it kind of gave me like a framework of understanding like my energy, my emotions, my decision making was like actually like that's like naturally like how I operate, instead of pushing myself maybe to function in ways that um weren't aligned with who I was,
Hmm.
like, and coming to an acceptance of myself, right, allowed me to work with my body, with my nervous system, with my emotions, rather than force like forcing outcomes and working against myself. Like,
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Can you share a moment where you applied this work or an example of a moment where something came up and you applied this work and you saw something change or something that unfolded differently than it normally would have?
I would say like the moment I asked my husband for a break in our marriage, I fretted about it. We were like completely out of sync. Um, there was a lot of projection going on. We were like not having very good communication.
every conversation was just like looping in circles. I spent so much time like fretting about the conversation, for analyzing how it was gonna go. But
Hmm.
when I finally spoke and just like the words just kind of fell out, the conversation, it wasn't a fight, it wasn't an explosion of anything. It was kind of this relief and kind of sadness, and followed by like almost like a quietness between us. And like for
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 months, there was just like a shift in how we communicated.
Hmm.
Um,
And did that unfold differently than what you expected? Because you said there was a lot of fear leading up to like asking for what you
oh,
needed.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I was like, I thought that there was going to be just like this epic like fight, like,
Mhm.
or just tension, and I was going to blow up my entire life.
Yeah. So it's a great example in the book that I've written. I talk a lot about the pain reflex and how interrupting it is what changes things. And so like that's a perfect example of you interrupting your pain reflex because your pain reflex was like don't say anything, don't create trouble, don't ask for what you need. And you interrupted it by asking for what you needed and you got a completely different response than what you had expected, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to the point of like, um, I think that, over the like again, like over 4 or 5 months, like it was very quiet, and like there were like subtle changes in like how we communicated. And then it almost changed from like this, like again, like this looping communication and out of syncness to like a more softness, a more quietness, a more acceptance of each other. And we were finally like seeing each other more clearly, like
Mhm.
we are on the same team. And it felt almost like we evolved from people who were like against each other or like very volatile to more like, no, wait a second, like we are on the same team, we can work together, and much more like a there. I liken it to like it feels very adult, like,
Mhm.
wow, we're both capable of having an adult relationship.
Yeah. One of the things I talk about a lot is like what's meant for us will stay as we go through this work, and what's not meant for us will fall away. And I think speaks to something that a lot of us have a lot of fear about is we don't necessarily want to let go of some things. And there's fear about saying or interrupting that pain reflex because it has the potential to change. What would you say to somebody who maybe is in a similar position where things in their marriage or relationships and other places in their life aren't ideal? Like there's a lot of stress and overwhelm, but they're afraid to like interrupt the pattern and change the dynamic because of that. Like I'm not sure if this relationship will stay or if it will dissolve. What would you say to somebody who's in a similar
I
position?
would say, I would say that you never know of course, you never know what's going to happen, right? But like speaking your truth, um, often allows the other person to speak their truth, and somebody has to go first, right?
Yeah.
Um, he was equally as unhappy as I was. He was equally as sad and wanting things to change. I would say, like, don't be afraid to speak your truth, but on the flip side, respect that, like, they have their truth as well. And if it's meant to be, you guys can work together and you guys can change.
Yeah, so there's a lot of trusting the process and just letting it unfold and it's like without trying to control the situation. So your marriage has changed a lot since doing this work. Is there anything else like I know you have a son, like your work, like what else would you say has shifted in your life? And even speaking to like how you feel in your body today versus how you did years ago.
With my health, like, I used to like obsess obsess over my health. Why do I have like joint pain? Why do you know? Yes, I am aware of it, but I'm not obsessed with it. Like I am my awareness comes from like, are you taking care of yourself? Not, oh my gosh, did you make that doctor's appointment? Are you trying to get into that specialist? Like it's Sarah, are have you gotten enough sleep? Did you eat regularly today? Like, did you move? Gently. Those little things. Have you attended to your nervous system? Like, can you feel your body? I treat it more with care rather than treating it as a problem. In my work, I've realized, I think for a very long time, that uh, I don't know if complacency was the correct word, but it was always, I enjoyed my work. I found a lot of self mm, accolades, maybe, or value in my worth or in my work, but I always kind of felt like maybe like, oh, this is a means to the end. I'm starting to realize that like work can be something that it doesn't have to be the one source of where you feel valued. It can be integrated into your life as something more sustainable.
Yeah, I love all of that. And I wanted to go back because you were talking about the energy around like no longer like chasing the symptoms, that kind of energy. And I'm wondering if you can put words to or articulate the value or the impact that that has on your body, your nervous system to not constantly be focused on eliminating the symptoms when they arise, but rather it's that like ability to reframe and gently honor like, well, what is it that you need? And like to not have that strong reaction to pain anymore.
I feel more open, is what I would say. When I think back about that, the time frame, I, when I was sick, like there were a couple of things like I constantly felt like I was like this like square peg trying to jam like around like
Yeah.
a round cylinder into it. And like I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work. And at times I would almost like feel I would almost drive myself to uh like just spin out and spiraling of like anxiety, like why is this not working? What's wrong with me? What is wrong with me?
Hmm.
And turn into like some very inward self-loathing or self-sabotage or criticism. And I feel more open and receptive to being like, oh, well, maybe you just need to take a nap or go drink some
I love it.
water.
I love
Like,
it. Yeah, like open
so
to other possibilities being true. That's so beautiful. That's
yeah,
life-changing in and of itself.
yeah.
Who would you recommend this work to? Like who do you think would benefit from this type of work?
Somebody who may think that, oh my gosh, perhaps there is something more or something is missing, but I can't pinpoint
Mm,
it.
hmm.
Like I've tried this and I've tried that and I've tried this and I just like I'm striving for deeper understanding of myself, or I want to relate to my life and body and relationship with more awareness or compassion and acceptance. I think it feels disconnected in some sort of way, but really cannot really place a finger on it. I think people that would benefit the most are people who think everybody has the capacity to look inward, but people who are open to looking inward.
Hmm. One of the objections that I hear most commonly is, oh, I've tried so many different things. Like, I don't know that, how do I know that this is going to be the thing that helps me or that changes things for me? And what would you say to somebody who feels that way or thinks that way?
I would say that, you know, perhaps this is like the thread that weaves everything else together. That's what it really felt like to me, because I am somebody who has really tried a lot of things. And it this really touches on, oh, it it reminds me of the support group. It reminds me of my therapist. Oh, it reminds me of what my specialist said. It reminds me of what this specialist said. And then you take the needle and
Yeah.
you're like,
It
there we
bring,
go.
just brings it all together into one tapestry. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Last question. Tell me one thing that surprised you the most about this work.
The way that this work has helped me is seeing that real transformation happens when you begin to work with the energy that you have,
Mm, yeah.
and instead of turning against myself. That
Hmm.
having awareness isn't necessarily the final destination. It's like an ongoing process. And each time we like integrate like one layer, another layer becomes visible. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And before I like would kind of like brace, again, like when I said my husband, I'm like, oh my God, another curveball is coming my way, right? And I would kind of brace. I don't really like want to experience the painful experiences, but now I'm like, okay, this is coming. I
Hmm.
can get through it. And then when
Yeah,
I
and I
see
think
another,
there's a little more trust in those painful, like even though it feels like it's going to be painful, like the more times we kind of, I don't want to say force, but almost like force ourselves through it, the like it's like, oh, like I can handle that. Like it's not as painful as I thought it was going to be. It
yeah,
builds trust.
yes, and like that, like like these shocks can like kind of crack our hearts open. I know our deepest wounds, like our deepest healings and our deepest capacity of love can happen through our.
So similar to you, like you came to this work having a lot of physical and emotional things kind of going on in your body. You also had some disconnection in your marriage, work, like things with work weren't ideal. Like there were a lot of different areas in your life where you could say like something's missing here, like something's not quite jiving in multiple areas of my life. And I find that's a common experience when people enter this work. And I also think it can be hard to know like where to start, like where to begin and what was your experience as you move through this work in terms of like how did you know where to focus your energy first and how to peel the onion, so to speak?
I kept thinking back of like our first like appointment together, and like what I remember most clearly about that appointment is like me telling you that like I've been on this like healing journey, and I just don't really like something's missing and I don't know what it is. Can you help me? Like,
Yeah.
um, and from that, that's where the onion kind of started
Hmm.
to peel. It naturally flowed where it was supposed to go. Like, it was just a natural like rhythm of like, we should address this first. Okay. And we're gonna go here or we're gonna go there. And it never felt forced in any way.
Hmm.
That's what I appreciated. I never felt like, oh, I have to be focusing on this or I have to be
Hmm.
focusing on that. It's what came up in the moment because I did not really know.
Is there anything else you want to add that you haven't got to share?
I think just that others, I think that this work is incredibly beneficial for anybody who's just kind of like thinking that there's something missing.